Hi everyone, hope you're well. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the topic of going to your mum's house after having a baby and how what's supposed to be a really nice time to recover and be with the people closest to you, how that can turn a little bit political. So I've got a question here from somebody and the reason that I'm sharing it is because it's actually quite similar to a lot of the messages that I do receive and the stories that I've had in the past. So here goes. My daughter recently had a baby. It's the first grandchild on both sides of the family. She's got her own place. They all have a good understanding. My daughter had a traumatic birth. She was discharged and came home. She then texted me to come over to help with baby and so she could sleep. The initial plan was for me to stay with her at her home for a few weeks while she recovers. I'm very close to my daughter and have a good relationship with her husband, so I went over and took my granddaughter, did some tidying, and she watched TV. She showed me what she wanted for dinner. My son-in-law was fine with this too. A couple of hours later, her in-laws turned up. Her mother-in-law indirectly implied that she was here. I didn't need to trouble myself. They sat for a few hours and they left. I then returned home to pack my bags to go and stay. I rang her to ask if she needed anything and she spoke to me normally. A little while later, she texted me saying to visit but that I didn't need to stay. Because of the pandemic, her husband preferred that it was just them two and that they would manage and that he wanted some private time with his wife and child. I didn't get offended. It was time for them to bond and he was already saying he was happy to change nappies and do night rounds. So I went about my day. I rang my daughter up, but she didn't speak to me much. I could hear people in the background though. She then texted me saying her in-laws had come over. Her mother-in-law said she would stay. Her husband preferred this as he was more comfortable around his own parents. I didn't know what to say. My otherwise nice son-in-law had suddenly completely changed. My daughter rang me again and sounded very upset, but said there wasn't much she could do. She said she wanted me and that hurt a lot. I was wondering if I should ring my son-in-law, but it's like he's teamed up with his parents and decided that this is his child and his parents have more authority. I offered my daughter to come stay with me, but she has also said her husband has refused. He wants his daughter to be in his home. I'm very disappointed. It was a love marriage. I want my daughter's comfort. I'm not interested in taking charge of my granddaughter. My husband is ready to ring up his father and have words, but I've stopped him, so I don't want things to go sour. We're quite young grandparents in our early 50s. We want to visit, but I know her in-laws will make it awkward. It's like we can't be there the same time as them, and they obviously have more authority because they're adadge. Wish I could bring my daughter home. She's a little shy and sensitive. Should she stand up to them or wait until her mother-in-law has gone home? What would most young girls do if this was them? You know something, like, you know how a lot of elders complain that girls don't want to live in families anymore, or guys say that girls don't want to live with my family anymore. I think one of the reasons is that if a girl is saying she's not comfortable in a situation and she's being forced to put up with something, I feel like some girls just want to get away because there's too much pressure. And judging by the nature of this question, there is clearly quite a lot of pressure. I mean, imagine having a baby and not even being able to be with the ones that you feel closest to. I think men need to understand that having a baby generally is a really, really big thing for a woman. And you know, if a man says that he loves you and you know he says, oh, I love you, it was a love marriage, I do everything for you, I care about you, but he's taken away your support system. Like if he's saying that you can't see, if a man is claiming that he loves you and your in-laws are saying they care about you like a daughter, but you have a baby and suddenly you're cut off from your support system, so they can come and visit daily, but no one is allowed to stay, and your mum is not allowed to get too close to the baby. And you know, why are you, you know, because I'm just thinking back to the time that I had my daughter and I was suddenly a child again. Like it was really weird. Like I was a lot younger, I was about 24, and I was doing things like lying on my mum's lap and you know, asking her to call these things for me, asking her to get up for my daughter repetitively at night time. And it's not something we should feel guilty for. Like, that's our mum, for God's sake. And I think people need to understand that when a child is born, a mother is born as well. Obviously, you've got situations which are very political where girls deliberately don't want anybody there but their own family, and that's wrong as well, because a child belongs to everybody, not just one side of the family. But I'm speaking more specifically of families who exercise control and say, this is our grandchild, we're the dadke, we matter more, what's her mum got to do with it? That's not about that right now. That is not what she is saying. And I think when you have a baby, there's so many physical changes you go through that men are not even aware of. Like, there's so many young men out there who have no idea what happens to a woman's body after she's given birth. And I remember after I had my daughter, somebody said, oh, after a woman's had a baby, it takes 24 hours to recover. And I was thinking, are you out of your mind? 24 hours? That is not true. I mean, physically you might if you had what you want to call a natural birth, but you know, emotionally, absolutely not. And I think men and their families need to be more aware of what a woman goes through when she's had a baby. It's not just she's had the baby, she's come home and that's it now, let's live happily ever after. Absolutely not. I get messages from girls saying that I had a baby and I was told to go and change out of my pajamas because we were getting visitors. I mean, what the hell? Like, you've just had a baby. Why a visit is important? Shouldn't you be putting your daughter-in-law first and the baby first and thinking of the visitors afterwards? Like, traditionally, people used to go to their mum's houses to have babies. And what I know about it is that they would ask the girl side to like pay for all the bills in Pakistan, paying for all the bills to do with the children, and you know, putting unnecessary burden on the mother. And also because like for 40 days apparently the husband wasn't going to go near his wife anyway, so it's better for her to be at her mum's while she recovers, gets back to normal and comes back. Now it's become a little bit different. Obviously in the UK, a lot of people are moving out, living in their own homes, and suddenly it's become quite competitive. People have a baby and it's become more political, like, you know, who gets there first, who gets to look after the baby, who gets to change the most nappies, who gets to do the night rounds, who's the child going to be closest to. And sometimes it's considered like an insult to some parents that why did my son let his wife's mum look after the baby and not me? But this isn't about that. This is about what that mother needs at that certain period in time. I think like obviously there's this ravage of like the 40-day thing, and you know, let's be honest, a lot of us don't want to stay indoors for 40 days. A lot of us don't do that. I certainly didn't. There are some mother-in-laws who are wonderful and do everything for their daughter-in-laws when they have a baby, but that's not the point. The point is not that, oh, because she can do everything and she's able to, we don't really need your mum here. That's not the point. It's about who the mother, the person who's given birth, who does she feel closest to and who does she feel that she wants there. And you know, you get stories from girls saying that their husbands have pressurized them to take their mothers into the birthing room, and you're like, what on earth? Like, some people it's fine by them, you know, it suits them and they're happy with that, but then some girls don't feel very comfortable. And you know, if you asked your husband to strip down in front of your dad, most likely he'd say no. So you know, why is a woman being made in the most vulnerable position, giving birth, although it is quite, they keep you quite dignified in the delivery room? That's not the point. The point is that people who are in the delivery room with you, they remember everything, and it just really depends who you kind of want there and who you don't. It's not a personal thing, and people shouldn't take it as if, oh, she's being rude, she's not allowing me into the delivery room. Or you know, there was a girl who messaged saying that she had 3 sister-in-laws and all 3 of them wanted to go into the delivery room, obviously post pandemic. And you know, you just have to question that this is a woman giving birth. This is between her and her child. It's got nothing to do with anybody else. And if she wants her mum there, so be it. That shouldn't come as a threat. I think a lot of families also make a really big deal about the whole, she's going to her mum's house, we're not going to get to see the baby, without actually seeing the bigger picture. Yes, you might not see the baby for like 3 or 4 weeks. After that, the baby will then come and live with you permanently. So really, there's no point making a massive deal out of where she gone for 40 days, why has she gone there, or why has her husband gone with her. And then you have this other issue where, you know, families are saying that, oh, if we're here, the girl side can't be here. It's a little bit like some of the messages that I've got in the past about like first birthday parties, tequikas, you know, places where it's all about the child and suddenly it becomes a competition between both of the parents. And I think it's also worth remembering that a child will always be closer to who shows them lots of love. So if a nanny, for instance, who naturally show lots of love to their daughter's children, is not doing it on purpose, she's not doing it to threaten you, she's doing it because she loves her daughter's child. And that's why naturally a lot of us are very close with our nannies. Like, it's really absurd because, you know, when marriages happen, 2 families are getting on great, they're getting on like a house on fire. Suddenly they're like, oh, you're our new Rishtadar now, you know, you're our family, you know, you're everything to us, you know, we're best friends, we get on really, really well. And then when a baby's born, they act like they don't even know each other. Like, suddenly it's about which mum got there first. Did his mum get there first, or did her mum get there first? I mean, I'm personally of the mindset that if one of my sister-in-laws had a baby, I'd ask her what she's doing, not at her mum's house, or why her mum hasn't come out. Or why her mum hasn't come to help her. I certainly wouldn't be saying, why are you not staying with my dad? Or, you know, why is your mum there? Like, having a baby is a really vulnerable time. Why would you choose that particular moment in a woman's life to remind her that she hasn't given anyone any izzat, that she's not dressed appropriately, that she left, and this is true, she left her pad out in the bathroom. And sorry if you're a guy and you're watching this is one of the reasons that a lot of girls do say that they want to go to their mum's houses after they've had babies, or that they don't necessarily want to live with in a joint family, especially if there's brother-in-laws and it just isn't comfortable. I feel like a man who says that, you know, you got my mum, you don't need your own mum, that is, I mean, if you scroll through the stories on my page, we've discussed that and we've been through that and people have talked about it and we're still talking about it. And it's like, why on earth have you chosen this particular moment in her life for her to prove to you that your mother is more important. At the moment, the only person that is the most important is the person who's had the baby, the mother, the one who's recovering, the one whose health has to get back to normal in order for her to be able to look after that child. If she's bombarded with comments, and you get girls saying that, oh, my in-laws are commenting on how I breastfeed, they want me to get up on my feet straight away so that I can be running around again, they don't like the way I dress the child, they don't think she eats or he eats enough, and all these comments, and you just think that actually, how is a woman supposed to get back to her original state after having a baby if she's constantly bombarded with these stupid comments? And I think it's really, really sad how, like, in this story, this mother is saying that she feels a little bit pushed to the side. And it's like, imagine that his mother was feeling that way. It would be made out to be such a big deal. I mean, how many guys' mums would be willing to take a step back and say, well, actually, I don't feel offended. If they're happy in their little thing, I'll let them be happy and I'll come back later, or I'll come back another day. But she's quite clearly taken a step back. She's happy that her daughter, her son-in-law and the child want bonding time. And it's like, also, if your son-in-law saying that, my parents can be here, but your parents can't. It's like, what sort of relationship has a guy then got with his in-laws, and what is he expecting from his wife? It's not really balanced. I mean, come on, you can't ask your wife to allow your mum and your dad and your sister and your brother and everyone to come and stay over. But then when it comes to her own family, who quite frankly, she's known for 20 plus years, she's lived with them for 20 plus years, they know her habits better than anyone. She's not allowed to step foot in your house. How is that fair? Like, it doesn't even make sense. Like, I always think that, and I see this in a lot of marriages as well, girls have got their families around them, girls who've got help accessible to them, girls who've got their mums, obviously I don't, but girls who've got a mother to do things for them, and husbands who nurture that relationship and very much encourage their wives to continue having a relationship with their mum and their sisters and not getting upset and not bringing their own thing into it again. Again, those marriages are often quite happier, and the children that are born out of those marriages are also happier and flourish better, because if you think about it, if you cut an entire woman's, support system off the people that she knew in her life and say, you're not to see them, you're not to go there, they're not to be a part of this, they're not a part of this, only my family are. It's like, what impact's that going to have on her? If she's not 100%, how is she going to raise your kids? She's obviously going to be bitter and she's going to suffer resentment. And, you've got girls saying that my husband said, oh, if you go watch, I'll divorce you. And it's like, there are girls out there who are quite frankly terrified. They think that that's actually going to happen to them. So they listen and, they go through whatever their husband says. And then in the end, no one else suffers but them. They realise that actually I didn't make a full recovery. I hung around, I listened to everyone's comments. I did it to please him, I did it to please his mum, but no one was doing anything to please me. I think where this lady has said that her husband is ready to have words with her dad, I don't think that's the person he needs to be speaking to. I think the person he needs to be speaking to is your son-in-law, and his concern for your daughter and what he actually wants in the long run. Is the wrong person to speak to. Is kind of like shifting blame, like, let's start blaming his parents. It's like, if he himself isn't taking a stand and he himself isn't saying, I want my wife to be with whoever she wants to be with, then there's no point speaking to his parents about it. Should she stand up to them or wait until her mother-in-law has gone home? What would most young girls do if this was them? Okay, so ladies, fire away in the comment section. What would you do if this was you? If you had a baby and your husband suddenly decided that your parents are not allowed in your house and your in-laws are only allowed in, and they will do all the taking care of you and your baby, and you will see when we see with your own mum and dad. If I was in this situation, and obviously I have to very carefully advise, because everybody's situation, temperament, how much they can tolerate is different. Every man's temperament is different as well. Some men, when they say they'll divorce you, they're actually serious. Some men just say it to threaten you, and other men don't say it at all. I think, like, a woman is very hormonal postpartum, and that's something that's really, really underrated in our communities. And as a result, women go through all sorts, and they just stay quiet, they switch off, they don't say anything, and they just put up with it. I think if there was more awareness around what a woman goes through mentally and physically, I mean, a lot of it is, oh, there should be sharm, there should be haya, like, we can't speak about this. But it's like, where's the sharm and haya when your heavily pregnant daughter-in-law is sitting on your sofa and she has to pull her dupatta over herself because you're worried that you might see her pregnant belly? Like, what sharm and haya? Where's the sharm and haya when, for example, after you have a baby? So I had forceps with my daughter, and I was told to sit in salt water in a bath. It's like, where's the haya when you're sitting in a bathroom and outside the door your father-in-law's walking past, your brother-in-law's walking past, maybe your cousin-in-law's walking past, every random person is walking past downstairs and you're sat upstairs in the bath? Where's the haya then? I mean, we talk about, we can't speak about a woman's breastfeeding and the struggles that she faces, because that's wrong. Like, that's bashadam. We can't talk about that. We can't talk about a woman, and I had this, a girl was saying that her father-in-law was confused as to why she was giving her baby formula. And it's like, why is that his concern? Like, where is the haya then? Where's the shame then? And it's like, and then she said to him quite unapologetically that I pumped the milk. This is my own milk in a bottle. And he had no clue what that meant. So it's like there needs to be more of an awareness of the struggles that women go through and what childbirth actually entails. And then there was this girl who messaged to say that her in-laws didn't understand why she was limping after she had a baby because she had a C-section. I've not had a C-section, but I can imagine it's incredibly painful. And stupid questions, they actually appear quite ignorant. And it's like you expect that when a woman has had previous generation 5 or 6 children, that at least the husband would be a little bit clued up as to what a woman goes through in childbirth. I think another thing is if we think in a very common sense sort of way, everybody's birth's different, of course, but I mean, I'll go with mine. I had my son with gas and air, and it took me about 5 or 6 days to be able to walk properly because I had a 2nd degree tear. So it was like, if you really think about it, if you've gone through that, why on earth do you want to be in a room with people that you don't necessarily feel 100% comfortable with anyway? It's like, why does your father-in-law want to see you limping? Why does your father-in-law want to see you with a giant dupatta around you? Because that's what we do out of respect, right? It's like, why isn't it just better to say, look, in your most vulnerable state, just go somewhere else, go to your mum's, do what you've got to do there, get better, and then come back, and then we'll see. What shock do people have of forcing their daughter-in-laws to stay in a household with people that she has to have parda from anyway? And on top of that, she's had a baby, so she's not in the correct mental state, she's not in the correct physical state, but apparently she's supposed to stay in your house to please you, to show other people that she's not done a runner and not put her mum first. It literally makes no sense. Yeah, back to the lady's last part of her question, what would girls do? I think in these situations, rather than fighting with your husband, it's better to get him to see reason and to explain all of the points that I have raised in this video and any points that are going to come through in the comments, that this is what I'm going through. And a husband who has enough sense and who has a compassion for his wife and who cares for his wife will be able to separate the two and think, actually, my parents are not the ones who matter here at the moment, it's my wife. She needs what she needs and I need to ensure that she gets it. So just like a man is responsible for provision, Islamically, like money and providing food and shelter and clothing, he's also responsible for facilitating a woman's correct emotional state. So providing her with an environment that she's comfortable with when she needs it. So if you're saying that you're responsible for your wife and you're doing your duty, well, actually, are you doing your duty because she's needing certain emotional support from certain people? And I think in our community we're shamed for, and I made a video about this like ages ago, and it's like, why are we shamed for saying that we want our mothers? Why on earth are we told that we're babyish, that we should grow up, that it's like, what about men? Like, shouldn't they grow up? They're saying that in this particular question, the guy said that he wants his own parents around so he feels comfortable. Sorry, are you the one who had the baby? I think in this situation a woman really needs to it's almost a test of character. So her actions could determine what her husband's true colours actually are, because in a love marriage we think we know our husbands 100%, but over time lots of things come out, and usually the outcome's positive, inshallah. But it's like, if she's honestly feeling uncomfortable and she's not liking it there at all, and she's feeling like she can't do certain things, or she can't be herself, or she isn't going to make a full recovery, I would advise this girl to pack her bags and go to her mum's. What is the worst that can happen? She's not run away. She's not gone to an unknown place. She's gone to the place that she was raised and nurtured for 20 plus years to make a recovery so she can come back and be the best that she can be in her marriage and for her baby who's going to grow up. I don't think in these situations it's worth saying anything to your prospective in-laws or mouthing off at them. And obviously after birth you're very, very hormonal anyway, so whatever comes out of your mouth isn't usually what you intended to say. So whatever comes out of your mouth, sometimes people just need an excuse to say she was rude to me. I don't think in these situations it's worth having a go at your in-laws or saying, making passive aggressive comments to your mother-in-law because you really wish your own mum was there. I think the best thing to do is, if your husband can't provide that environment for you, you need to go and get it yourself. So if you think, actually I'm just going to cry, or I'm not going to be very happy, or I'm just going to argue with my husband all the time, the best thing to do is remove yourself from that situation. Go somewhere where you are going to get the care that you need and the love and the affection that you want. And I think your husband, if most men are reasonable, I would like to think, will eventually forget about it. He'll be angry for a month, 2 months. Your in-laws might be a little bit annoyed and then they'll forget about it. I think, in these situations, change is only driven if you show somebody that you're not willing to put up with what they've deemed acceptable for you. So if you just sit there and think, oh, I'll just put up with it, what happens when you have the next baby? What happens when you have the baby after that? I mean, why are we making it acceptable that as girls, that our parents should just be pushed to the side? I mean, that is clearly a thing of the past. It doesn't exist anymore. It's just some like really sincere advice for men who are watching this video as well, is that I was very close with my mum, and to this day she's not here anymore, but I say that she understood me better than anyone. And even now, like the fact that she's been absent from my life for 3 years, I still wouldn't say that there's anybody that understands her better than anyone that understands me better than she did, despite her not being here for 3 years. So I mean, I just hope that gives you a little bit of perspective, that women who've got their mothers with them, that their mothers are present with them, their mothers understand them better than anyone. They shouldn't come as a threat. They obviously, unless your wife's mum is being unnecessarily horrible or rude to you, then that's a completely different story. But from what I know, most girls' mums are not horrible to their son-in-laws. They don't say anything to them. They just want their daughters to be happy. Like when you see your wife's mum hug her, or your wife's sister hug her, your sister shouldn't feel threatened. Your mum shouldn't feel threatened either, because that's her support system. You've got yours in place. Most men live with their families. They wake up to their families every day. Girls in our culture, we don't have that. So, you know, if a girl is saying that I want to go to my mum's house, I've had a baby, that shouldn't become a fight. Like, and obviously these things should be discussed prior to the birth of the child. And, you know, just like we sit together and discuss weddings and how we're going to do a mehndi and what food we're going to have at a wedding, and both sides are sitting together discussing things. Similarly, before a baby is born, it should be discussed as well. And ultimately, the well-being of the mother should be put first, and the child should be put first. And it's well and good for a man to say that, you know, my daughter or my son should be in my house. But it's like, that's more of an ego thing. And then also we're saying that, you know, men are getting married and, you know, they're saying to their wives that this is your home, but then suddenly her family are not as welcome there. And, you know, what do women call home then? Her mum's house is not her home. Her in-laws' house is not her home. Her own home is not her home. So where is her home then? The very thing that you are supposed to provide her with, where is that? Anyway, sorry, I went off on a bit of a tangent. If you've got anything to add in the comments, if you've been through this situation before, know anybody who has, what do you think this girl should do, or what do you think she should have done? This was posted a little while ago, so I guess because there's quite a few other stories like this, that it would help them. What should a girl in this situation do? What should her parents do? And what's the best way to go forward? And what would you do if you were in this situation? I think also, like, all this thing about boys' mothers or boys' sides saying that we wanted access to the child or the child was ours is very much a control thing. It's got nothing to do with we love the child. You can hear sometimes people say, oh, we love the child more, it's our blood. And it's like, well, that's really stupid, because a child is 50-50, because a child wouldn't exist without its father, but then equally it wouldn't exist without its mother. So a child is 50-50. Essentially, a child is also 50% Nanke and 50% Dadke. It can't be that a child is fully Nanke or fully Dadke. That just wouldn't make any sense. Another one of the reasons that I'm sharing this is because when I had my son, I was in hospital and there was a woman in the bed opposite me. It was quite clear that her mum was not with her. I had my baby 6 weeks before the pandemic began. So it was quite clear that this was her husband's mum. And it was just the way she was presenting herself, and it was just like, oh, she didn't look very comfortable. And obviously I got a bit emotional because my mum wasn't there. So but in the ward, everybody looked like they had their mothers with them. And this woman who was opposite me, she stood up and she was wincing in pain, and I said, are you all right? And she went, I felt like my torso was going to fall off. And I just thought, imagine being in that, and this was like way before I started my page, but imagine being in a situation where you feel like you're going to fall apart and you're being bombarded even more with people laying their expectations and you saying you've got to do this, you've got to live like this for the next postpartum period, the next 40 days or the postpartum period. You have to behave like this, you have to wear this, you have to live with this person's going to come and stay, this person's going to expect that, the baby has to do this. What mental state is that going to put your wife in? It brings us back to what I said at the start of the video, is that this is all about compassion, mercy and love. Our marriages need to be full of compassion, mercy and love if we're going to set examples for our next generation and for our children. You know, it's difficult because even marriages, men who are seen as having compassion or mercy for their wives are seen as whipped or simps or joruk or balam or gulam or whatever you want to call them, and it's not very much applauded in our culture. Still, there's quite a lot of people who are coming out of that, thankfully. But there's still a large majority of people where it's considered like a bad thing to, you know, show your wife that you care about her feelings or putting her first. And quite often someone will come along and ridicule you, and it doesn't make it any easier when you had a baby. I think as well, a lot of aunties of the very, very Burani old sort think that, oh, girls who've had children are now going to use them as leverage, or now going to use them as an excuse to whip their sons even further. But then the question arises again, is that why did you get your son married if you didn't want him to be immersed in his family unit, just like you want your daughter to be immersed in hers? I think in these situations, like, there shouldn't be any offense taken if a man says, you know, my wife wants to rest, or we're not having any visitors today, or, you know, she just wants to be with whoever she wants to be with, or, you know, we'll see you after this many weeks or whatever. I think also if a man doesn't want to go with his wife or doesn't feel comfortable staying at his own in-laws house, what is the logic behind not letting her go? Like, you're saying, oh, I'm not going to see my child. Unless you live in a different country, you can go and drive and see your child every day. You can, you know, spend time there. You can have dinner there. You can, you know, do all sorts. You can maybe do exactly what your wife was doing when she was living in your house. If anything, it will allow you to see another side of your wife and what she's like with her own family and how much they do for her. Anyway, this story made me a little bit upset because it made me remember my own mum. And I just want to remind everybody that our mothers are very dear to us. And guys will say my mum's dear to me, but you're not the one who had the baby. So I guess it's even harder when you're on bad terms with your husband's mum anyway, and you go and have a baby, and then you're expected to then still put her first, and she's not putting you first. And it's like, oh, okay, if she was to put you first, she'd put your feelings first and say, but, you know, Beta, where do you want to go? Like, where do you feel happiest? Or, you know, what would you prefer in the next 40 days? How can we make this as comfortable for you as possible? A bit like she may potentially do for her own daughter. Postpartum depression is something that is just not recognised at all with our elders. I mean, I remember my own mum saying to me that she'd never heard of it before. She didn't know what it was. She remember feeling a little bit sad after having my youngest brother, but nobody really recognised it, and she also didn't recognise it. She just thought it was because she felt really tired because of the birth. And you've got stories from guys whose mums literally do nothing for their grandchildren, but they still expect their mothers to come and stay with them, maybe to show the world that they've given their mum respect, or to show the world that they're not owned by their wife's family. Because obviously, if you were close with your in-laws as a man, that's obviously like a bad thing, apparently. I honestly think that we're the generation who needs to question a lot of these things that quite simply don't make any sense. As I said before, if it was like a birthday party or a hakika, or, you know, something that involves the grandchild and both grandparents want to be present, then that's different. But a woman who's had a baby is most of the time in some level of pain, and, you know, if it's not physical pain, it's emotional pain, and she needs that recovery period. As I say, please leave a comment to best advise whether you're an older follower or a younger follower, what somebody in this situation should do. If you're a man, it would be nice to hear from you as well. Anyway, thank you for watching and listening. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay, bye.